Well, good morning and shalom. So here we are on Wednesday, July 2nd. And got to ask yourself, right? I come from, it's safe to say, inside the Beltway blue bubble family. And they're just all head up over the one big beautiful bill. And it is amazing because if you watch Fox News, you hear one thing, and if you watch all the other outlets, you hear another thing. So what I have started doing, especially in this second term, is I just go to the White House and see what their press releases say. So I'm going to read it to you. What they say is in the one big beautiful bill. And after that, we're going to discuss why I believe this is true and what I believe is actually happening in the United States. So this is an article from the White House dated June 29th, 2025. So a couple days ago now, 3 days, 4. And you can go to whitehouse.gov and you can read the press releases for yourself. You can watch the videos yourself of what the White House is saying and how it responds to these questions. So the first myth is the one big beautiful bill is just a tax break for billionaires. I hear this all the time from everyone, especially on the left, which is ironic because the left is funded by billionaires. That's who funds the left, not little $5 paychecks from grandma. It's billionaires. It's tech billionaires. It's medical billionaires. It's people from overseas, and they have an agenda, okay? And that is to run this country the way that benefits them and their little groups of people. But they project this back onto this administration. I don't even think it's fair anymore to call me a Republican. I don't think that's what I am. I think I'm an America First patriot, and I want to go back to a way of running this country that hasn't existed except for a short period of time after the Civil War and just prior to World War I. That's what I want to go back to. You saw it again under FDR, by the way. But anyway, here we go. Myth, the one big beautiful bill is just a tax break for billionaires. Fact, the one big beautiful bill delivers the largest middle and working class tax cut in U.S. history. The president's legislation will put more than $10,000 a year back in the pockets of typical hardworking families. This is the most pro-growth, pro-worker, pro-family legislation ever crafted. Second myth, the one big beautiful bill takes from the poor to give to the rich. We hear this every time. Fact, low-income workers stand to receive the largest percentage reduction in their tax liability. The one big beautiful bill delivers the largest tax cut in history for working and middle-class Americans. Myth, the one big beautiful bill makes life more unaffordable. Fact, the bill delivers bigger paychecks, expanding take-home pay by over $10,000 per year for a typical family of 4. Myth, the one big beautiful bill hurts low-income families. Fact, the one big beautiful bill is the most pro-family legislation ever crafted. It will deliver bigger paychecks, again, giving more than a $10,000 boost annually to everyday families. We are also expanding opportunity zones, expanding child care access, increasing the child tax credit, and creating newborn savings accounts. Myth, the one big beautiful bill is just a handout to corporations. Fact, this bill drives a blue-collar boom with tax relief for workers, support for small businesses, and investments in American manufacturing. The One Big Beautiful Bill delivers the largest middle and working class tax cut in U.S. history. Let that sink in. The One Big Beautiful Bill leaves American workers behind. This is the most pro-American worker bill in history. The One Big Beautiful Bill boosts pay for millions, and with no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and those working hourly in service jobs receive an additional tax relief. In other words, if you work by the hour, if you're a wage slave, a W-2 wage slave, you're in wage slavery, they at least give you the ability to make overtime that is not taxed. They at least give you the ability to get a $100 tip and have it be a $100 tip and not taken by the federal government. The One Big Beautiful Bill hurts small business. This is another myth. The One Big Beautiful Bill will make the Trump tax cuts that were done in 2017 permanent, including the small business deduction, helping Main Street grow and hire. Failure to pass this legislation would result in a $4 trillion tax hike. Another myth. The One Big Beautiful Bill kicks American families off Medicaid. As the president has said numerous times, there will be no cuts to Medicaid. I don't know how to say that. There will be no cuts to Medicaid. The One Big Beautiful Bill protects and strengthens Medicaid for those who rely on it: pregnant women, children, seniors, people with disabilities, and low-income families, while eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. The One Big Beautiful Bill removes illegal aliens, enforces work requirements, and protects Medicaid for the truly vulnerable. Here's another myth. The One Big Beautiful Bill cuts Medicare. Medicare has not been touched in this bill. Absolutely nothing in the bill reduces spending on Medicare benefits. This legislation does not make a single cut to welfare programs. It safeguards and protects these programs for all eligible Americans. Myth. The One Big Beautiful Bill will close rural hospitals. I was concerned about this. Rural hospitals comprise just 7% of all hospital spending on Medicaid, illustrating that they have not benefited from the massive increase in waste, fraud, and abuse under the Biden administration. By strengthening Medicaid, we are making more resources available for vulnerable populations and safety net providers like rural hospitals. We are expanding rural hospital protection, providing targeted funds for rural care, and giving states flexibility to support local providers. Myth. People will literally die from the One Big Beautiful Bill, and millions will be kicked off their health care. Fact. This is one of the most egregious, deranged attacks from the left, peddling fear over fact. The One Big Beautiful Bill protects eligible Americans on federal welfare, including Medicaid, by strengthening the integrity of Medicaid by eliminating waste, fraud, and abuse. Its resources can then be refocused on providing better care for those whom the program was designed to serve: pregnant women, children, people with disabilities, low-income seniors, and other vulnerable low-income families. And I'm just going to pause for a minute right there to remind you or notify you, if you aren't aware, that Dr. Oz came on, I think it was now 4 days ago, and they found 15 billion, billion with a B, B as in boy, $15 billion of fraud. They've arrested I think it's like 342 people, including, unfortunately, like 75 nurses and around 25 doctors, physicians. And the fraud is like obvious stuff, like people in psychiatric units somehow getting plastic surgery. So if you want to be irate about something, be irate about that. The one big beautiful bill will, here's another myth, will hurt people with disabilities. The one big beautiful bill protects and strengthens Medicaid for Americans with disabilities. Rest assured, those with disabilities receiving Medicaid will receive no loss or change in coverage. The one big beautiful bill punishes vulnerable Americans with work requirements to receive their benefits. Fact, not true. The 20-hour weekly work requirement applies only to able-bodied adults without young children and promotes dignity, stability, and better health outcomes for families. The one big beautiful bill restores the dignity of work with historically bipartisan work requirements for able-bodied Americans. This is nothing new. This requirement has been around since the Bush administration. I don't know why people can't remember past elections. We are implementing common sense Clinton, there you go, Clinton-era work, volunteer, education, or training requirements with broad bipartisan support. Myth, there's no fraud in Medicaid. Republicans are just taking coverage away from vulnerable populations. I just told you about $15 billion with a B of fraud discovered by CMS. And I'm going to read you this fact. In the last 10 years, CMS admitted that improper payments for Medicaid have exacted $500 billion. In just the past year, taxpayers spent $56 billion with a B, as in boy, on benefits for able-bodied adults abusing the system. And over 1 million illegal aliens are receiving free health care on the backs of taxpayers. The one big beautiful bill removes illegal aliens, enacts work requirements for able-bodied adults, and protects Medicaid for the truly vulnerable. Myth, SNAP work requirements are unnecessary. Fact, only 28% of able-bodied adults on SNAP work. The other folks, for whatever reason, they're not working, 2/3 of them. The one big beautiful bill promotes work, responsibility, and restores SNAP to serve the truly needy. SNAP enrollment remains high even in a strong economy, including millions of able-bodied adults who could work. In fact, almost 3/4 of able-bodied adults without dependents on SNAP have no earned income. The mission of the program has failed. SNAP was intended to be temporary help for those who encounter tough times. We are strengthening this program to serve those who need it most. And I'm just going to interject here. Like 4 days ago, there's a meatpacking plant. I can't remember exactly where, but it's here in the state of North Carolina. It was raided, and because they got a tip that there were illegal aliens who committed fraud by stealing Social Security numbers and were working there illegally in North Carolina. So they came in, detained the whole day shift crew for a couple of hours, made sure they were actually people who were either U.S. citizens or working with a qualified work permit, and that they were actually who they said they were. And then they released the people who met the legal obligation under the law. And then they arrested, like, I think it was something like 12 people, okay? And we had the lame left waving foreign flags in North Carolina saying, oh, their human rights and their civil rights have been abused. No. You don't have a right to break the law. And the police are simply exercising, and when I say police, I mean federal agents are simply exercising the right that's not even the right word. They are exercising their duty under the law. Okay? If you want to yip about staying in this country, at least stop burning the American flag and maybe wave the American flag. Stop waving Palestinian flags and Mexican flags and saying you want to remain in this country. It's ludicrous on the face of it. Myth: illegal aliens don't get federal benefits. Fact: illegals burden taxpayers with billions in costs for free health care and welfare benefits. The One Big Beautiful Bill ends Medicaid and SNAP fraud and ensures these programs serve only eligible Americans, which is what the vast majority of us voted for. Myth: the One Big Beautiful Bill doesn't actually end taxes on Social Security. Fact: the One Big Beautiful Bill delivers historic tax relief to seniors with a new tax deduction that, combined with other deductions, ensures the average Social Security beneficiary will pay zero taxes on Social Security. Okay, so if you're making, to make the math easy, but I think it's right, the average person receives somewhere around $2,000 or $2,200 a month on Social Security, so $500 or $600 a week. Okay, depending on where you live, you might be able to live on that if your mortgage is already paid off and if your car is already paid off, and if you're planning on not living long enough to need any repairs or to buy a new car. And on top of that, currently they tax that. Let's just say they tax it at 15%. So 15% of $2,000 would be $300. So if you got $2,000 a month, and they tax $300 a month of that tax is $3,600 a year. But they're saying under the One Big Beautiful Bill, they will put an extra $3,600 in your pocket every year. So you might actually be able to pay for a car repair or a water heater for your house. Okay? Myth: the One Big Beautiful Bill increases the deficit. Fact: the One Big Beautiful Bill reduces deficits by over $2 trillion by increasing economic growth and cutting waste, fraud, and abuse across government programs at an unprecedented rate. This legislation delivers historic levels of mandatory savings. President Trump's pro-growth economic formula will reduce the deficit, increase wages, deliver American jobs, and drive down the cost of living. But the CBO says, okay, let's address that. The Crooked Budget Office, otherwise known as the Congressional Budget Office, has a terrible record with its predictions and hasn't earned the attention the media gives it. The CBO misreads the economic consequences of not extending the Trump tax cuts. The One Big Beautiful Bill delivers real savings that will unleash our country's economy and prevent the largest tax hike in history, resulting in historic prosperity while lowering the debt burden. Okay, let's just get into that just a little bit. The CBO is its standards for the metrics that it uses aren't real. Okay, even the lamestream media has had to say that there's no inflation. Now here we are. It's just the first week of July. July 4th is on Friday. This is Wednesday, and they said, "Oh my God, the tariffs are going to cause a trade war." They haven't. You can still buy your cheap China crap at cheap China prices. Number two, oh my gosh, the stock market's going to crash. Well, you dipped, but if you didn't panic and you didn't bail out, your money's worth more now than it was on April 2nd when he declared Liberation Day. Okay? Third thing, while I'm on this rant, President Trump, not whoever the idiot was in the White House, whoever was working behind him, and somehow it was him. Trump, okay, ran around, made all sorts of peace deals with. There's now 4 countries to have signed peace deals with Israel, your beloved Israel, my beloved Israel, and that was done in 2016. Also, he moved the American embassy to Jerusalem where it belongs. These are 2 big things. And then he went around to all the Arab nations when he became president for the second term and said, no more wars with Israel. If you're not going to fight Israel, we're going to make trade deals with you. And 12, this isn't talked about by the left at all. Trump went in with our military, and if any of you guys were actual American patriots and you understood your American culture at all, you would be jumping up and down and cheering for the tremendous, incredible feat it was to take out those Iranian nuclear sites. And you say, oh, but it was leaked from the Pentagon. Yeah, that was one sentence in one line from one leak, one person who's anti-American and instilled in our deep state. Okay? So get on board. It was a 12-day war. It made the world a much safer place. Bibi Netanyahu was summoned to the White House yesterday. We'll find out what is said today in the news cycle. Bibi's come to meet this president 3 times since January 20th. Okay? So real things are happening despite all the crap that you're hearing on the mainstream news. Okay? Peace between India and Pakistan is a big deal because those are 2 actual nuclear powers. And Trump stopped that escalation by saying we won't trade with you if you go to war. So I don't know if you folks can see the pattern yet because you're so used to getting your version of reality from the lamestream news who has an agenda to lie to you to keep installed the current regime that's been in place since World War II and benefited not the United States, but every other country on the planet and all the people who want to commit treason. Okay? This is called the American system, is what Trump is bringing back. And the American system is to have low or no taxes on U.S. citizens and to tell the rest of the world, if you want to deal with us, it's going to cost you. You don't get anything for free anymore. Okay? And that's what these people on the left that are in power are so upset about. They even Rand Paul, who I generally like, but I now realize that libertarian monetary theory is a subtle implant from the British system. We're living under the British system, where the United States is made a vassal state, okay, essentially of the British economic system, okay, where we can't manufacture anything on our own and all we do is send raw materials to China and then it comes back to us. That's called British imperialism. It's just under another name, and that name is called free trade. There's nothing free about free trade if another country is charging us 125% tariffs and we're not charging them anything, okay? That just means it's a trade barrier, okay? So that's how that works. Rand Paul, back to him. He voted no. He voted against this bill because he doesn't understand that number one, we got off the gold standard in, I think it was 1971 or 1973 under Nixon, and essentially deficits don't mean much anymore because they just manipulate money, okay? If we're getting off of that fiat currency system and going back to something approximating a gold standard or the dollar pegged to oil or whatever you want, there may be a little bit of short-term pain There, you may have to run a deficit a little longer, but when you've got people like the Fed chair refusing to acknowledge now for months that what he should do is lower the interest rates to something that's actually on par with our friends in Europe, which is like 0.75%, 1% at the most on loans, because there is no inflation now. Now, you can say, well, yeah, my prices are still up, but I've experienced that too, and that's price gouging. That's not due to the administration. Now, the CBO misreads the economic consequences of not extending the Trump tax cuts. So you've got to remember that in a very large way, this bill just extends things that are already in place. There's too much pork in this bill. In fact, there's no pork in the bill. Every single provision in the one big beautiful bill is a campaign promise. The American people elected President Trump to deliver. The only new spending in the bill is to secure the homeland of the United States and save American sovereignty, which, yeah, we did vote for that, which is fully paid for by increased visa fees on foreigners. You can come to this country. 1.2 million people a year, even now, come legally into this country. And they have to put something in the pot. Not everybody is a poor single mom who somehow some misogynist got a hold of her and now she's pregnant. Okay? The myths are I've had dogs throughout my life, and you can, no matter who the dog is and no matter how much trust they have, no matter how well trained they are, when you break out that vacuum cleaner, even though the vacuum cleaner has never attacked the dog, not only do they act like it's going to attack them, very often they put themselves in front of the vacuum cleaner and then act like they're being attacked. Has anybody ever experienced this with people? When their minds are so hell-bent on a scenario that they try to make it come true, perhaps unconsciously? I have. Myth: the one big beautiful bill won't strengthen national security. Fact: the one big beautiful bill delivers on President Trump's peace through strength agenda by funding the Golden Dome missile defense system and modernizing our military to prioritize lethality and readiness. It fully equips our warfighters with the resources they need while modernizing and revolutionizing our equipment and technology. And I just want to speak to that for a minute. You know, almost all of us who were in the military in whatever capacity, who were active duty, we noticed that we could never win a war. They'd never let you win a war, and forever wars and all that. And the media just keeps harping, even though there's no truth in it with Trump. He's been able to do what no other president in my lifetime has done. Even Reagan didn't do it. We let 243 Marines die in Beirut in 1983. I think it was 241, 243. And Reagan just pulled us out, and that was the end of that. And then Trump, after the Israelis have fought magnificently and done things that can only be said are miraculous by softening the Iranian defensive network to the point where it was non-existent. So B-2 stealth bombers B-2 stealth bombers from Missouri could fly 7,000 miles one way and then be escorted by B-35s and F-18s and not have one shot fired at them while they were over Iranian airspace for 25 minutes. Okay? And the left, again, what is it about you guys? that you never can take a win and go, oh, this is good. This is good for the country. This is good for everybody. Oh, but I don't do politics. I don't discuss politics. Really? You do it all the time, except when you're losing. You know, I was in Washington, D.C. the first time Trump got elected. And up to that runoff, all I heard at work was, he's going to lose, he's going to lose, he's going to lose big time, blah, 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 blah. And the day he won and I was the only person happy, oh, we don't discuss politics at work, Rob. You people are hypocrites, and you're feckless, and you're weak, and you don't understand what real strength is. He's saving you, and you still won't give him credit. He stopped World War III. It was a 12-day war for the United States. In other words, that attack on Iran was over 12 days. Iran lobbed a few impotent missiles over a few of our guys. Where was it? Qatar, or was it just north of Israel there? It doesn't really matter. Those Patriots are manned by like young dudes who are like 22, 23 years old. Not saying anything against them as people, but you take the courage of those guys versus the lack of courage of your average 25-year-old male or female in this current situation, and I got to tell you, there's something wrong. There's just something wrong. Okay, the one big beautiful bill helps big oil and locks up U.S. energy resources. Fact. Quite the opposite. It unleashes American energy, refills the strategic petroleum reserve, and repeals the Green New Scam policies. Some of them. Okay, in my opinion, he didn't repeal enough of the Green New Deal, but you've got people who are pushing for what they want. So that's another thing we need to discuss is, why do you think that the president is a king? And why do you think the economy or the democracy is not working when you steal elections? The democracy is not working when the votes are fraudulent. The democracy is not working when you have the news media lying about what's really going on. For some reason, apparently people are saying manufacturing jobs will still go overseas. That is the biggest myth I've ever seen. If you go back to Franklin Delano Roosevelt, if you watch, I've circulated it around for some of you. If you go on Promethean and you watch the movie about the real history of the United States, one of the things that you will see is that FDR, the Democrats, the so-called Democrats, did not want FDR to be president because his policies were going to make America strong again by using the wealth of America and the people of America to dig itself out of the Great Depression. And that's exactly what FDR did through the Civilian Conservation Corps, which is how you got all the highways built and all the dams built. Hydro energy and all of that actually started under Roosevelt. And they say, oh, World War II got us out of the Great Depression. Not so. World War II was what got us into never-ending wars. I used to think Churchill was my great hero. I have, to this extent, I'll just show you. To this extent. There it is, folks. I'm sorry, my ability. There. That's a portrait of Churchill, okay? Right next to my machine for my back. And I've read 3 or 4 books on the life of Churchill, and although I still respect him, he wasn't an American, okay? And what I mean by that is people talk as if the American Revolution was just, you know, so those guys back then could be in charge. That's another thing I'll mention on the side is all of the founding fathers were under age 30 and they were already made men. Okay, and I look at your average 30-year-old today, and I'm like, where you've got to be. I'm just not going into it, but you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me. The One Big Beautiful Bill delivers 100% expensing for new domestic factories. Creates opportunity zones and incentivizes companies to keep jobs in America. Myth: the One Big Beautiful Bill neglects rural America. This bill, this is the fact from the White House, this bill invests in rural communities, expands market access, and delivers historic support to farm families. The One Big Beautiful Bill provides the certainty Americans' farm families need to continue operating and producing the affordable, safe, and abundant supply of food, fuel, and fiber that our nation relies on. Myth: SNAP is being gutted and cutting food stamps for families, causing them to go hungry. Fact: the One Big Beautiful Bill protects and strengthens SNAP. Right now, almost 3/4 of able-bodied adults without dependents on SNAP have no earned income, and the fraud rate is high. The mission of the program has failed. SNAP was intended to be temporary help for those who encounter tough times. Now it's become so bloated that it is leaving fewer resources for those who truly need help. We are committed to preserving SNAP for the truly needy. Myth: Republicans are shutting Democrats out of the legislative process. Fact: this is not a partisan bill. Democrats shut themselves out by supporting higher taxes, open borders, and giveaways to illegal immigrants, something that the vast majority of the country does not want to do anymore. Okay? That's just fact. The One Big Beautiful Bill delivers on Republican promises to lower taxes, secure the border, cut spending, and put Americans first. And I'll just say an aside, that's not racist, okay? There are many of us who come from other nations and have American citizenship. Let that sink in, that you're just believing a lie. That plant in North Carolina, they said, oh, we won't be able to replace the jobs because no American wants to do the job. A week after they arrested whatever it was, I think it was 112 people, and deported them, they had several hundred people. They had a job fair at the meatpacking plant, and they had 4 times the number of people, 3.5 or 4 times the number of applicants that they had positions for. So that was Americans wanting to work, okay? Americans want to work. The fact that you gutted the Appalachians, and if people wanted to live where they were born and didn't want to move somewhere, you say the average woke American Democrat, who probably is from that, says, well, you should have moved. Why? Why should they have moved? If they can get jobs where they live, if illegals aren't taking their jobs. It's just common sense, okay? I don't know what you people are on about. I know you have many degrees. I know you've been taught Keynesian economics. That is not the American system of economics. That is the British system of economics. Read it. Figure it out. Use your degrees to figure out what's really going on. Myth: The one big beautiful bill border package is not necessary since President Trump has secured the border. Yeah, he has. But we have to ensure that the invasion we witnessed as a nation under Joe Biden and Kamala Harris never happens again. The one big beautiful bill's historic investment in our border security ensures we permanently secure our border and protect our homeland by finishing the border wall, hiring 10,000 new ICE officers, and funding efforts to stop the flow of fentanyl. There is a White House newsletter that you can subscribe to. If you go to whitehouse.gov and put in your email address and sign up, you will get these kind of updates from the White House. And if you text POTUS to 45470, you will receive real-time text updates. Now, I personally think that instead of relying on me or a news outlet or whatever else it is you rely on for your version of truth from the government, that you should at least see what the government itself is saying. Now, this is going long, and I am sorry about that. But this needs to be said because you people are feckless. And your buttons are easily pushed. And you fear things that aren't real. Okay, what is real is 100,000 people dying every year. Let it sink in. You're worried about guns. They say, oh, God, they used to say guns kill 40,000 people a year. Most of that was, whether it's true or not, 100,000 people is 2.5 times more dying every year from drugs than guns. Yet somehow you see it as when it's drugs, it's like, oh, it's your right. It isn't your right. You have free will. It doesn't mean that what you're doing isn't without consequences. And one of the consequences of taking drugs from people who don't care about your life and only want your money and smuggle these drugs in from foreign countries using the very people you claim to be so supportive of. 2/3 of the women who come across the border from the Darien Gap, if they come by land and they aren't flown directly in like they were under Biden, being flown in 7,000 a day to the interior of the country, they get raped, sexually assaulted. The kids disappear. There's 400,000 children they can't account for. Why aren't you up in arms about that? What are you exactly up in arms about? That your 401k that is built on a system, a current system of worldwide death, violence, misery, and stupidity may be under assault? When you actually stand before the Lord and have to give an accounting of what you did with your life, how are you going to justify that? You should be pulling your money out of Chase Bank, out of Bank of America, out of JP Morgan. You shouldn't be saying, well, the system is just the system, and it's always going to be this way until the Messiah, until Mashiach comes. Really? You think that's gonna be the thing? He's gonna go, oh, you were part of the demonic world system, which is based on greed. And the book says to you, the love of money is the root of all evil. It doesn't say money is the root of all evil. It says the love of money is. I should stop. It's going too long. I realize that. He goes in for 12 days, knocks out an existential danger to the world. You don't see the Arab nations rising up to defend Iran, do you? So why should I listen to some senator who can't make a complete sentence because they got installed or elected by other people who can't make a complete sentence? No, enough, enough. Everything this man does makes common sense. And you benefit from it whether you realize it or not. So stop believing people who don't have anything in common with you and long ago gave up their allegiance to the United States of America and to anything even approaching morality. Please think. Please use your critical mind that God gave you and stop waiting for miracles. Maybe God is waiting for you to do something different. Baruch Hashem. Shalom.